Hello and welcome to Not Made in China, the podcast sharing unfiltered conversations about adoption and the beautiful madness that comes with it. I'm your host, Shaosheen, and today I'm joined by Eva, a Chinese adoptee who was adopted to the UK and is also the creator of BBC Sound's podcast, Made in China. In this episode, we talk about what it's really like growing up adopted, from the assumptions people make to the pressure of feeling like you're not Chinese enough, and how your understanding of identity can really shift over time. We also get into nature versus nurture and what happens when you start telling your own story, instead of the one people expect of you. As always, we have a lot to talk about, so let's jump into it. And I hope you enjoy eavesdropping on our conversation. Eva, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to Not Made in China.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So to dive into it, I'd love to know a little bit more about your adoption story.
Yes, so I was adopted in 2001 when I was just over a year old from a place called Nanchong in southwest China.
Amazing. And where did you grow up in the UK?
So I grew up in Essex.
And how was that for you? Were there many other Chinese people around, or was you kind of one of the only ones in your area?
It's a predominantly white area where I grew up. I think it's changing now, but I definitely stood out. Me and my sister, who's also adopted from China.
And is she younger or older than you?
She's older. She was adopted in 1998, different part of China. A question I often get though is like, is she your biological sister?
Interesting.
I guess it's easier for me to be like, no, of course we're not biologically, but because I know the whole like...
The context,
exactly. But it makes me realise that other people don't.
Yeah. So growing up, do you remember having any particular feelings about being Chinese or being adopted?
I think at school was when I started to realise there were these outside perceptions that existed. And then when I got to secondary school, it started to affect how I felt about myself internally.
Yeah, when you were growing up and you said,
Yes.
yeah, kids would make these comments. How did it make you feel? Did you feel, this might sound really strange, but did you take it personally? Because some adoptees I've spoken to have said, actually, people have made these racist comments, but because they don't feel particularly Chinese themselves, they almost didn't internalize it.
Yeah, I think I'm like apprehensive to make statements that are so like black and white because my perception of that time is constantly changing. But right now, I think having the comments made me want to prove that I was even more British.
Interesting.
Because they were saying like, you know, oh, you're this, you're that, you're something different. So I wanted to assimilate even more to be like, no, I'm so British. Look at me. I'm just like you, except with my face. And I guess my parents, to protect me, they would say like they don't mean it like that. But I guess now in my adulthood, I'm realizing that meant I never gave myself space to be like, maybe, you know, maybe that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's okay to take it the wrong way.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it completely makes sense. And as we always say, you know, the intent sometimes doesn't matter. It's about how it lands.
Yeah.
And that's something that was really hurtful to you, and your feelings within that are so valid.
It was all internal though. I guess externally you kind of learn to just be like, don't be too sensitive. And it's very subtle. So it's easy to say, oh, it's just a joke. Like, don't take it like that. But when it's, to them, it's like, oh, I said one comment. But to the person receiving it, like, I don't know if you've experienced this. It's just like a long list of experiences that, you know, it's just adding another one. So I'm working through a lot of like repressed anger for that young girl who kind of bared it and learned to be the joke to kind of survive.
Of course, it sounds really tough. And did you find like other adults or people in positions of responsibility, would they call out those comments when they heard them? Or were you kind of made to feel like, oh no, it's just a joke, you shouldn't be so sensitive?
Yeah, I don't that's a good question. I don't really remember.
It sounds like, I feel like with certain things, especially when we're kids, we don't necessarily know what racism is, and we don't really know what it looks like. And it takes us being taught, because I know for me anyway, like a friend of mine in primary school made a joke about my eyes, and it was that whole thing, oh, like my dad's Chinese, and then pulled her eyes up, and like my dad's Japanese and pulled them down, and was like, that's how I ended up like this with like wonky eyes. And then my mum,
memory.
Honestly, I unlocked.
Yeah.
And then my mum said, yeah, that's not okay, and here's why. And because I was sat there like, laughing along, I had no idea that it was an issue. But it only took her calling it out to make me realise. It took her calling it out to make me realise like this isn't okay.
Yes.
But I don't know if you ever had anyone actually say, you know what that person said to you isn't okay, or whether you've kind of just been made to feel almost like it's normal or it's just kids being kids.
I don't know if I spoke about it too much. I kind of just, maybe I was embarrassed that I experienced it. Maybe not. But I don't remember like telling my parents, oh, these people said this.
And how did other kids respond to you being adopted? Was it treated as something quite normal?
I remember like one experience of this girl saying like, oh, she's not your real mum. But obviously that didn't land as a kid because I didn't really know, like, you don't have that understanding of motherhood. Being a mother is more than just biological.
Definitely.
So, you know, who put me to sleep at night?
And that just really shows that, you know, we can be related by blood, but unless there's someone to actually step up and take those responsibilities and be there for you, the term mother doesn't really mean much. And do you think that maybe that kid's comment didn't really, I don't want to say bother, but maybe you didn't internalize it so much because you're like, actually, no, she is my real mum. So what you're saying is just not correct.
Yeah, I think if I had an experience with like my birth mother and then I was raised by my adoptive mother, I'd be like, oh, you know, I get what you mean, real mother. But my memories are just of my mum, like my adoptive mum. So I have no like reference to compare. So there is no other kind of like real mum to me. I don't know. I don't want to discredit the biological person that carried me.
But you're not at all. I think your mum is your mum. That's that's who she is. And I think it's really lovely that you had so much confidence at that point in your life to know that and to not let some stupid comment by some kid that kind of shake your realities of like who your parents are. I
don't know if I did. I don't know if it, like, in hindsight, I'm reflecting on it very, like, I'm mentalizing it. But at the time, it might have just completely gone over my head. Like, there could have been so much that I think around secondary school and like as you get older in uni, that's when like Chineseness really became something to point out because I guess as you grow up into a woman, there are like more eyes on you.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so true. I think it's easy to sit back and like overanalyze what happened when we were younger, but actually, yeah, a lot of it probably did just go straight over our heads, and we were probably taught to just accept that certain things are normal, or we just wouldn't, our brains wouldn't flag that anything was abnormal. And then, yeah, as you said, as we get older, then we start to recognize things. And I'd be interested to know, was there a particular point in your life where you suddenly started reflecting a little bit more about your adoption story?
Yeah, I think it was actually quite recent. I think in 2024. That's still recent, right?
Yeah, definitely.
2 years ago. Gosh. I started to realize like I have got these features from someone and how much of who I am is, you know, made up of nature or nurture. Yeah, I wrote like a dissertation about my like envisioning the life of my birth mother in like tandem with the life I had now. So it was like a dual narrative. It was like, because it was a creative writing master's and we had to do like 16,000 words. And it made me, as I was writing it, it made me realize how, I guess, like Western my perspective is on China. And so I kind of wanted to look at that part again with new eyes.
And what kind of new things did you find?
I'm actually kind of afraid to say anything generally because I feel that imposter syndrome of if I say a statement about China, it's like, but you weren't raised there. Like you don't have parents who are Chinese, so how do you know? But internally, I've accepted this Chinese part of myself and I feel a bit more proud of it.
Great.
And a bit more taking ownership of it. I guess my experience as an adoptee is I'm very influenced by external projections. And I think it was my need to adapt because of the displacement early on. So I had like 3 sets of parents. So these attachments that got like severed quite early on. Being adaptable was a tool of survival. But now in my adulthood, I'm realizing that it's not getting me where I want to be. It's not actually helping me to always adapt to the other person because sometimes the other person doesn't want what's best for you. My perception on my own Chineseness has shifted, but yeah.
It's really interesting. And something interesting you said was talking about external projections and kind of other messaging you've received about being adopted or being Chinese. As you were growing up, is there any particular messaging that kind of stuck with you or that you can remember? Or perhaps like assumptions people might make, or perhaps any sort of misconceptions, or for example, like being told you should feel grateful to be adopted.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things as society tells you should feel about who you are. Just anything you kind of feel that you've been told.
I think a lot of the assumptions people have about me is my like closeness with China and being Chinese. I think I realized that no matter like what I say, what they're seeing first is someone who looks Chinese. So in my experience, that's what they lead with. And they ask me all these questions, assuming like I know a lot about China. Like, do you speak Chinese? Do you cook the food? Do you know how to cook like egg fried rice? Do you this? And I'm like, no. I get asked that quite a lot from like the same person. So I know to them it's just like innocent, but to me it's like I'd like more space for nuance of, because you could be raised by Chinese parents and still not know all those things.
Definitely.
But I started to feel this like obligation to perform Chineseness to like appease people who saw me and saw someone Chinese.
That's interesting. And when you say you felt you had to perform Chineseness, what kinds of things did you feel you did?
I didn't do it well, to be fair. Like I don't think I did perform Chineseness like but recently like I was just at some place in like the outside area and someone was expecting me to know all this stuff that I didn't. And I was having another conversation and they were like, by the way, I'm pro-China. And it's just like, because I look Chinese, it's like, why are you saying that to me?
Like, how does it feel to have people make those assumptions about you?
It makes me realize like how much people, once they see you, you are what they see. So even if I like kind of articulate how I don't feel necessarily really Chinese, they'll still ask me questions to kind of inquire about my knowledge on China.
That's really bizarre. So even after you said to them, this is who I am, I don't have this knowledge, they still can't get around their own version of you in their head. Yeah,
their own version of me. That's a good way of putting it. I think, but maybe I'm just surrounding myself with the wrong people.
But then also, I think a lot of these attitudes are sadly quite common. And I mean, I've definitely had situations where people have thought I was an exchange student and I told them I wasn't, and they were like, but are you sure? Like, well, yeah, definitely, because it's my life.
In Essex, I think, God, when like if I went to get like a Thai massage, I had this instance where this woman like asked me if I was going to give her the massage.
No.
And I was like, no. But
oh God.
I guess it's these types of things that you're told, just bear it, just take it. But when is a lot, it's hard not to get to you.
Yeah.
And I think I need to allow myself space to kind of feel that annoyance. But
definitely,
I don't know, I've kind of lived a life of pushing it down and saying they don't mean it, they don't mean it, they don't mean it. But I guess I kind of think I owe it to myself to be like, maybe, you know, they were in the wrong for that.
Absolutely.
Or maybe, I don't know.
But was there a particular point when you thought, actually, I am going to give myself space to feel what I need to feel?
Therapy, when I started therapy,
yes,
for
we love
sure.
Therapy.
Yeah. Learning as a child that being the joke makes it easier to thrive. Like if you're the type of person that can laugh and make those jokes, but then realizing that when you do it, you're encouraging other people to do it. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So now I try not to make those jokes about myself, but sometimes I feel it. I feel that default because of the systems I learned as a child where like, oh, I say this comment about myself, they're gonna, you know, laugh and it's gonna work out well. But now I'm realizing as an adult, I shouldn't teach or encourage people to say stuff like that to me.
But when people would laugh, like, would it feel validating at all?
I don't know if validating, but that feeling of like being liked.
And accepted.
Yeah, maybe accepted is the word. I'm kind of unsure because there are so many like phases I kind of went through. So even from like 15, 16 to like 18, 19 feels very different. So my answer's going to change.
But that's okay. And I guess that's the beauty of it. Your feelings around your identity and who you are going to change and evolve over time. And you might decide one day, okay, this is who I am. But then if you change your mind tomorrow, like that's absolutely fine as well.
So it's hard to speak clearly about my experience because it was so, as my relationship with myself changes, that changes, like hindsight.
When it comes to therapy, do you think well, I'd love to know how that's kind of changed the way you see yourself.
I think self-acceptance, and also I guess making the podcast made me take ownership of stuff and stop being so like embarrassed of existing. But I think anyone could experience that, adopted or not. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope it's not just a me thing.
No, definitely not. And then when you talk about kind of the feeling of being embarrassed to even exist, I'd be interested to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, I know. I used to be a really calm person, but now my anxiety has just shot up. But I don't know if that's just a cultural thing with like social media. Not to get too philosophical.
And was it around anything in particular, like around being adopted or being Chinese, or was it more just sort of self-consciousness?
I think when you absorb everyone else's perceptions of you, it's hard to then have a perception of yourself that hasn't been influenced. So that's what I'm currently trying to deal with. If I experience no one, what would I think of myself? Because everything I think of myself has been influenced, I guess. And I just wish I wasn't as much of a sponge. I really admire people who are kind of, I don't know, because there's stubbornness, but people who are really them.
Like they know who they are.
Yeah, but I guess it's two ends of the spectrum. Like you don't want someone who's really stubborn, but when you're so adaptable that you don't actually know, like, you know. So I'm just learning to be a bit more grounded.
Yeah, it's a process. And do you think part of it is also about learning what your core values are?
Yes, yeah. And I think my tolerance to racism is a massive one. I say racism, but it can be so subtle, and it can be in microaggressions, and it can just be in someone's comfortability to say something to you and not question it. So it's not overtly, I hate this, but I think I'm going to stomach less of it.
Good. I think, and even if they are kind of what we'd say, oh, they're smaller things, they're just microaggressions, they're still just as hurtful. And they're almost sneakier, and it's almost more harmful because it makes it a lot more difficult to call it out. Because if someone's there out like just shouting on the street, they hate Chinese people and calling us slurs, then it's easy to go, okay, this person's a dick, like we're going to avoid them. But then when it is kind of more subtle things, it does make it a lot harder.
Yeah, you question yourself. You question like whether you have a right to feel what you feel. I'm learning to trust. I mean, I know it's like quite cliche to say, but trust in how I feel and what I say, what I think.
That's great. That's a really good thing. And now if someone did make a comment, or if you did experience a microaggression, do you think you would handle it differently to how you would like a couple of years ago?
I wish I would, but there was this instance I was kind of disappointed in myself because someone was saying some really like not nice stuff to me. Like he asked, you know, where are you from? Which is kind of like, why do you look like this? And I said I was adopted, and he was like, oh, so you're a gutter girl. I know.
What?
And I was like, what's that? I'd never heard that term
heard that
before.
in my life.
And I don't even know if you want to keep that in, because that's a horrible statement.
No, I want it's interesting.
And he was like, oh, it's about those girls that were thrown away in like gutters. And,
Shut up.
And then there was this other person that spoke to me and was like, it was just talking to me about Chinese history and saying, you know, like, you know. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, why are you pretending not to know? And I was like,
oh my God.
And so I kind of played into it, and I was like, yeah, of course I know.
It's really unfair that you have to change how you act or pretend you're someone you're not for the sake of soothing somebody else and their misconceptions and their stereotypes.
Yeah.
It just feels really unfair.
And I wish I was like, go away. Or I just walked away, or I just stood up for myself a bit more. But it was another lesson to learn and to reinforce that. I think when I'm friends with someone and we have that comfortability, it's okay. Like, I'm not like, you can't, you know, make jokes, because that's something I hear a lot. Like, it's just a joke. But if you're a stranger to me, if I've just met you and that's how you introduce yourself, yeah, I don't like you. I don't want to be around you.
100%.
And I need to be firmer on that.
But I think also it is such a long process, kind of trying to unlearn certain reactions and responses to things, especially when it comes to people being racist or making microaggressions. And I think the fact you can even reflect on it and go, actually, that wasn't okay, and I know I don't want to stand for that. The fact you even have that thought shows so much progress already, because it isn't going to be an overnight switch of just telling them to go away or walking away straight away, because it takes time.
Yes, thank you.
But it's great that you had that self-reflection, and I'm sure that shows like amazing progress already.
Yeah, I think my issue is being around the wrong kinds of people, and that desire to fit in is keeping me around people that I don't need to be around.
But it's great that you know that. And it sounds like a lot of people have had lots of kind of misconceptions around your knowledge of China and all of these things. But do you encounter many misconceptions about adoption itself?
I don't know. I think people are a bit more sensitive with adoption than they are about speaking about Chinese people, maybe. People usually don't probe too far. But I guess a misconception is that I see myself as rejected by my birth mother.
Interesting.
I guess I choose to believe that in a repressive society, choice wasn't really an option, and the regime means I can't keep this child even if I wanted to. I don't have a choice. So I don't really feel rejected.
That's good.
But I don't know if that's a misconception.
Yeah, people do have a lot of assumptions about adoptees.
I guess gutter girl.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can imagine a lot of people do say, oh, your birth parents didn't want you. It's like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. We just don't know. And it is a lot more nuanced than just, oh, they just didn't want us. And kind of growing up, did you talk much about your birth parents with your, I'm going to say adoptive parents, but I know they are just your parents.
Yeah. That's something I learned with the podcast, like having to differentiate between, I've always just called them my parents, but now I specify adoptive parents. It's weird. It's like, yeah, to be fair, my mum and dad were really open. Like they even speak about the foster family I had. And how they were like really upset when they had to give me away. Well, pass me over because I wasn't theirs. My mum's very open. She talks about, there was something she said that was so sweet where she said, and my dad, that if they could meet my birth parents, they would want to say, I just hope we've done like a good job.
That's lovely.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh.
Oh, it's really lovely. And it's amazing they talked about your foster family. I'd love to know a bit more about that. How long were you with that foster family before being adopted?
I think only a few months, but I have this picture on the day that my adoptive parents signed the papers. My foster mother came to say goodbye, and there's one photo and she's holding me. And it was for like articles I had to, send photos. But this photo was quite personal and private, and I was surprised that I didn't want to share it. And my dad like recorded the footage of it all, which I'm so grateful for because I get to watch it and kind of see it back. But it's weird to see this confused baby.
But how does it feel looking back at yourself as a baby in that time? Now you kind of have an adult lens of I kind of get what you're going through.
I think she's so confused and she's looking at everywhere, and the signing of the papers, she's screaming, like she's quiet. I mean, she is me, but she's quiet. And then when like the other Chinese people come in, she starts to scream, like I start to scream. And I think it's because I was trying to say like, help.
Yeah.
Like I don't recognize these people, these smells, these, but that's not to say that obviously I'm, not glad that I was adopted.
Of course, but I guess like so many things can be true at once, and as a baby it is so understandable that you'd be like, what the hell is going on here? Like all these everything I've known is now changing, and I can't verbalize how I'm feeling because I'm a fucking baby. And you just have to go with it, and it's so understandable that you'd be distressed as a baby going through that.
And I kind of see now as an adult how it's fed into like my life, my relationships now. And I'm trying to have a bit more grace of navigating that.
That's interesting. How do you feel it has kind of fed into your relationships as you've got older?
From this neuroscientist I spoke to, like the first 2 years in terms of like development is very important to like lay the foundation. And so because I didn't have consistency, I'm not used to it now with other people. So in terms of relationships, it's very new.
And do you feel like therapy is helping you navigate all of that?
It's an interesting one because therapy, there's a lot of like discourse around whether therapy is like, is it keeping you in that stuck spot if you keep having to re-talk about these things and relive it? Or is it you working through it and letting these emotions, So I'm very grateful for it, but I don't know if, do I keep talking about it? Like, do I keep talking about stuff that, I'm feeling, or should I learn to ignore it?
I guess there's no like right or wrong. I mean, I suppose it's definitely a a good thing that you are working through it. And it's really good you're giving yourself space to feel whatever you need to feel. And you might feel like actually it is really important you do talk about these things and just understand yourself a bit more. But then you might think further down the line, actually, you know what, I don't necessarily need this anymore. And you might feel like, you know, you're not actually moving forwards and that's not helpful to you, and then you can change your mind. But I think just rule of thumb in life, like, we are allowed to change our minds, and we don't have to know the right thing to do all the time. We don't have to know, we don't have to decide, okay, this is the one right thing to do, and we have to stick with that for the rest of our lives. It's like, no, we can't just keep changing, as long as we're checking in with ourselves, I suppose, and doing what we feel like the right thing is to do for now. But I don't know how you feel about it.
I agree. As you were saying that, I was thinking, like, my internalized policing voice is so loud, and I hope that in the next like 5 years, this is probably why people say like your 30s are great, because I hope that just quietens down and I can act without thinking this is wrong. Everything I'm doing is wrong.
And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about understanding what your core values are. So even if kind of the more surface level things change, or everything will change in your life, ultimately you know what you will and won't stand for, and having that sense of confidence will help kind of drive decisions and help you understand what is like right or wrong for you. And then I'd love to talk a little bit about Made in China, your podcast with the BBC. I mean, how did that come about, and how did it feel to share your story?
It was definitely challenging, but really, really rewarding in so many ways. The BBC put on this program called Audio Lab, which is like a trainee podcast accelerator program where they take someone with an idea and they kind of give them the resources to make something. And I think there are quite a large number of applicants. I know that when I got the interview, they said that there is another girl who's also adopted from China. So it was very like, people are ready to talk about it, I guess.
Great.
You know, because we're all around that age where we're learning that about ourselves. But I didn't trust myself to, if I kind of did it just off my own bat, I would do it well. So I kind of wanted that professional direction. And like, I had an exec called Peggy who was amazing.
It sounds like she really helped you tell your story in a way that felt authentic to you.
It was weird for me to teeter the line of like professionalism and personal, because I was sharing such an intimate part, like, as you know, you're doing it with your podcast. So it's hard to be like, this is just work, because I'm telling you every detail about my life.
Of course. And do you feel like the podcast changed how you saw your adoption story at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think I had to kind of write it from a third POV lens. So when you're living it, it's easier to repress your feelings about it. You know, like, oh, this is nothing, this is fine, like, I'm just too sensitive, like, this is... But as I took a step back and I wrote about myself objectively, I was like, damn, maybe I should be a bit nicer to myself, because this doesn't sound like, if this was my friend, I'd be a bit more nicer than I am internally to myself.
That's very interesting. So do you feel like it helped you find more empathy for yourself?
Yeah. And I guess the people I got to speak to, really, that was, I think, the best part of making it. Hearing their perspective and hearing their journey, like their identity journey, really helped me on mine.
That's brilliant.
As I was writing this podcast, I was thinking, should I be reflecting on this story that much? Or should I just keep calm and carry on? Like, should I do the British thing and just be like, everything's fine? Or should I, you know, actually show how much this is kind of affecting me? Because then I was also afraid that it would come across as, oh, you know, people are going to think this girl spends every waking moment thinking about her adoption. Like, I just sit in my room thinking, oh my God, I'm adopted.
Well, I guess it's about your adoption story, so it makes sense. You want to delve into it.
Yeah.
And did sharing your story bring up anything unexpected for you?
Yeah, I think I didn't realize how much I care about what other people think. Like, I thought I was someone who was pretty confident, but I guess you can be confident and still care about what other people think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something I really want to work on, because I guess I always think that people are thinking bad things and thinking the worst. And maybe that's because of like what I experienced growing up in Essex. Because some people might just be thinking something nice.
Yeah.
But I always think, oh my God, they're thinking something bad. And I realized that because as I was talking to guests, the guests would be like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, breathe. And even right now, you're probably thinking, girl, you're fine. Like, breathe.
No, you're great.
Oh, thank you.
And another interesting thing that I'd love to talk about is nature nurture. And I'd be very interested to know if your perception of nature versus nurture and the importance of each has changed at all over time?
That's such a good question, because it's still such a question mark to me. I think nurture has kind of led my life. I don't know if you feel the same, like as an adoptee. It's the only information we have to go on.
Yeah,
like
for
the
sure.
place we're brought up and the people that raised us. But when I interact with people, you know, my nature is the most, like sometimes the most prominent thing, especially when people are meeting me for the first time. And so now, after making this podcast, I realize that maybe I am who I am not because of what I've learned, but there is something innate. There is something that, it's such a tricky one, because I don't want to make generalized statements like, I don't know, there was a time like 3 months ago, for like a while I was romanticizing the idea of being like my birth parents, like maybe some of my traits are theirs. But you have parents who, you know, have their biological kids and they're nothing alike. But they still, I guess they still share genes.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't know if you've ever felt like, oh, this is so like corny, but like a lone ranger. But realizing you're not a lone ranger. And there is like this long line of genetics and ancestry that you're never going to meet, but it's there. So thinking of that makes me think, you know, maybe I'm not freak.
You're definitely not. And it makes sense that we're kind of genetically predisposed to certain things because I guess, our genetics they definitely do play a part. But then also as does our upbringing. So it's bound to be a bit of both. But I can definitely relate to what you talk about when you say, maybe when you think about like romanticizing a little bit and thinking, oh, but maybe I'm like this because of my birth mother, or maybe I'm like this because of my family, my biological family. So I think that is a very normal thing.
What do you think are some of the predispositions?
I don't know. I mean, this is going to sound really daft, but for me, I was going to say things like, actually, this is really stereotypical, so I might get shot down for this. But I talk very quickly, and I've been told by other Chinese people that's quite a common thing.
I talk quite quickly.
Well, see, maybe this is the thing. It might be that. And then also other things like, but then I know that I'm not reducing Chinese culture to drinking hot water, but I'll drink hot water. But then also my mum drinks hot water, so that's probably why I do it. But yeah, I can't think of any. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to think of things.
I know what you mean, because I grappled with the exact same like issue of there are these like differences, but how do you describe them without not generalizing?
It's really hard. It's really difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
I mean, have there been any particular moments for you where like, the biological side has felt more prominent, or has it always been a bit of a, oh, it could be this, but I'm not quite sure?
One of my friends, like I'm very apologetic for, you know, everything I do. And my friends was like, oh, that's very Chinese of you. She herself is Chinese. My mind gets very imaginative when I think of like a line of women that were living in a society that kind of told them that they were less valuable. And is that within me?
It's an interesting thought.
Is that why I'm so angry?
I guess I know it sounds really annoying, but I guess sometimes we just won't know.
Yeah.
And have to just make peace with that. But there is, I guess there is some comfort in thinking, actually, you know what, that could be because of genetics, and it's almost like another connection to being Chinese, and that's something that can feel quite nice, maybe.
Yeah.
Or that kind of almost like roots us in our Chineseness. Because of course, as adoptees, I can imagine, well, I've certainly felt like I'm not Chinese enough. I don't know if that's something you've experienced.
I don't know anymore, because when I'm in white spaces, I'm definitely Chinese enough.
Yeah.
But then I guess when I'm around like other East Asian people, I do feel different. And I've had people say like when I say I'm adopted, they're like, oh, I get it now. And I'm like, what do you get?
Yeah.
There's something I like about the mystery of it. I guess not to romanticize it again, but then why can I not? Because I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, having all these possibilities makes it easier to live with for me. Whereas if I had one clear answer, I don't think I want to know the answer. Oh, another misconception is that I probably really want to meet my birth parents.
Do people assume? Yeah, people assume that that's something that you'd like to do.
I kind of do want to now.
Yeah. That's okay too.
Like I wouldn't want to talk to them. And I don't believe it would be like a reunion of like, oh, wow, I think it'd be really awkward. It'd be a language barrier. And I think they'd be like if, you know, if they're still alive, they'd be like, what, did not expect to ever see you again. But I would like to see a photo.
Yeah.
Because I guess everyone wants to know a bit more about themselves. And that's, I guess, the privilege that people who aren't adopted from China have. They just have that anchor. But it's also kind of like a privilege to become your own anchor.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And ground my, like, I don't know about you, but I do really want to have kids.
Yeah, same.
And have kind of me reflected back and be an anchor for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Me saying single.
But it's a lovely bit. I agree with that. I think it's a really lovely thought. And when it comes to also meeting birth parents, I think I think it's so understandable to want to kind of just see what they look like and know what they might have been like, but then also to not necessarily need them to be anything in your life.
Yes.
And they can do some by meeting them or by finding out who they are, can give you a certain amount of closure or can help you in some ways, but it doesn't mean you need to let them back in your life as parents, because you don't need that. And I guess, not everyone wants to meet their birth parents, because there's not necessarily a role that needs to be filled. It's just sometimes just having that little bit of closure or clarity might be helpful.
Yeah. Do you think about it at all?
Not really. We spoke about a lot about my birth parents when I was little, but we don't know anything about them. But we talk about why they might not have been able to look after me. And we were always very open about it. But to be honest, I don't think there's anything that I'd necessarily gain from knowing who they were. I don't feel like I particularly need to know who they are. But then I'm also open to that changing too one day.
Yeah.
But just kind of more as a bit of a closing thought, is there anything you wish more people knew about adoption?
I think I'm going to speak like just selectively for Chinese adoption, because I'm sure there are many like local adoptions and different types of transracial adoptions that differ. But for Chinese adoption, especially around the one-child policy, I think I'd like more people to ease off on the kind of like savior aspect. Being like eternally grateful.
Yeah.
My parents, like, they wanted children.
Yeah.
They didn't want to save like a child. I guess I feel like there's a pressure to feel this immense gratitude when, I don't know, I guess it's just...
I do feel it's important for
Other
people to be able to understand that, yes, that we can be grateful for the things that have happened in our lives that have been lovely, but then also make space for the fact that we have also lost our birth family and we've lost a whole culture, and that was completely out of our control, and that is a thing, is very traumatic. And do you feel it'd be quite helpful if people could kind of differentiate between those two and understand the nuance behind it a little bit more? It's
very hard though, because obviously there is a lot of privilege to, you know, growing up in the UK that I'm aware of, but it feels like I'm balancing a like tightrope of perceptions.
Yeah.
Like I'm walking a tightrope of how to feel.
And that's very understandable. And I guess multiple things can be true, can be true at once. We can acknowledge that our lives right now are better than they would have been in our particular circumstances had we stayed in China. But then it's also okay to acknowledge that you shouldn't be forced to feel grateful for something you didn't choose.
Yeah.
Well, Eva, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And, well, I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, thank you so much.
After chatting to Eva, what really stood out to me is that identity isn't fixed, especially as transracial adoptees. Our feelings about who we are can change over time, and that's okay. There's no pressure to have it all figured out, or to meet anyone else's expectations of who we should be. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it. We post new episodes every other Tuesday, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Not Made in China Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.